A soaking wet HOA president, panicked police chase, and my horses drinking peacefully by the pond. I'm not making this up, folks. It all started when Karen appeared clutching her HOA rulebook like a weapon, screaming, "You can't let animals contaminate our water source." She blocked my horses from their own drinking spot, then threatened to call the cops. Sure enough, the police showed up. But when they heard the whole story, they turned to her and asked some very pointed questions about trespassing and property theft. What happened next? She went dead silent, then made a desperate run for it. Me. I just stood there filming every second. And what the officers found in that pond when they finally caught up to her, it was way more than just a plot twist. Before you watch complete story, comment below and let me know where you're watching from. That Tuesday morning started like any other on Sullivan Ranch. I was fixing the fence gate while my daughter Emma fed carrots to our horses, her laughter echoing across the 40-acre property my father had left me 2 years ago. The pond sat about 50 yards from our main house, a natural spring-fed water source that had been here longer than any of us. Thunder, my old quarter horse, was leading the others down for their morning drink when I heard the commotion. A woman in a crisp white blazer was marching across my property like she owned the place, waving what looked like an official document above her head. Her perfectly styled blonde hair didn't move an inch in the morning breeze, and her high heels were completely impractical for ranch terrain. She had that look of someone who'd never worked a day outside an air-conditioned office but somehow felt qualified to tell everyone else how to live their lives. "Excuse me," she shouted, her voice carrying that particular tone of entitlement I'd come to recognize from my brief stint in corporate America. "I'm Karen Mitchell, president of the Meadowbrook Hills Homeowners Association, and I need you to remove these animals from the water immediately." She thrust the document toward me like it was some kind of magical spell that would make me comply. Emma stopped mid-carrot and looked up with those wide 8-year-old eyes that always seemed to see right through adult nonsense. I walked over slowly, taking my time, because I'd learned that rushing only encouraged people like Karen to think they held all the cards. The horses continued drinking, completely unbothered by her theatrical entrance, which seemed to irritate her even more. "Ma'am, this is private property," I said, keeping my voice level and polite. "That pond has been here since before your neighborhood was even built. My family's owned this land for 3 generations. Karen's face flushed red, but she held her ground with the determination of someone who'd made a career out of getting her way through sheer force of will. She opened her folder and pulled out what appeared to be a map covered in highlighter marks and sticky notes. "According to our environmental protection guidelines, any water source within a quarter mile of our community falls under HOA jurisdiction for health and safety purposes," she declared, as if reading from sacred text. "These animals are contaminating a shared water resource, and I have the authority to cite you for environmental violations." The sheer audacity of it all would have been impressive if it weren't so infuriating. I glanced at Emma, who had moved closer to Thunder and was stroking his neck protectively. She'd been through enough upheaval since losing her mother in that car accident, and the last thing she needed was some power-hungry bureaucrat threatening the home and animals that brought her comfort. "Let me see that document," I said, extending my hand. Karen clutched it tighter, as if showing me the actual text might somehow weaken her position. "I don't think you understand the seriousness of this situation," she continued, her voice rising with each word. "I've already filed a preliminary complaint with the city's environmental department. You have 24 hours to comply, or I'll be forced to escalate this matter to the appropriate authorities." The horses had finished drinking and were wandering back toward the barn, completely oblivious to the human drama unfolding nearby. "Ma'am," I said carefully, "I'm going to need to see some official documentation that gives you authority over my private property." Karen's confident smile faltered for just a moment. "The HOA covenants clearly state." "Ma'am, my ranch has been here since 1962. Long before any HOA existed. Show me the legal documents." That's when I saw it, pure panic flash across her face before she quickly composed herself. "I'll be back with the proper authorities," she snapped, turning on her expensive heels. "And when I return, you'll wish you'd cooperated voluntarily." As her white Lexus disappeared down my dirt road, I had no idea she was about to make the biggest mistake of her life. That evening, I called my neighbor Tom Rodriguez, a retired deputy sheriff who'd been ranching in the area even longer than my family. "Tom, I need some advice about HOA law," I began, explaining Karen's visit and her threats. Tom laughed grimly. "Jake, that woman's been making trouble all over the county. She tried the same thing with the Martinez family last month, claimed their cattle operation was violating environmental standards. Turned out she was working with some development company trying to buy up ranch land." "Development company?" Galaxy Development. They've been sniffing around properties with water rights, trying to acquire them for luxury housing projects. The environmental angle is just their way of pressuring people to sell cheap. This was bigger than just some HOA power trip. Karen was part of a scheme to steal our family's ranch. The next morning, I installed security cameras around the pond and key areas of the property. If Karen was planning something, I wanted evidence. I didn't have to wait long. 3 days later, Emma came running into the house, her face pale with worry. "Daddy, the angry lady is back. And she has workers with her." I stepped outside to see Karen directing 3 men in hard hats who were unloading chain-link fencing from a truck. They were heading straight for my pond. "Hey, what do you think you're doing?" I shouted, jogging toward them. Karen turned with that same smug smile, but now she was wearing what looked like official county inspector gear, a hard hat, reflective vest, and clipboard. "Installing protective barriers around the contaminated water source," she announced. "For community safety. You can't fence off my pond. This is private property." "Actually, I can. Emergency environmental protection measures. The county approved it this morning." She waved another set of official-looking documents. I watched in disbelief as her crew began installing posts around MY Pond. My horses clustered nearby, clearly agitated by the strangers invading their drinking spot. "Ma'am, I need to see those approval documents right now." Karen held them just out of reach. "These are official county environmental protection orders. Failure to comply results in daily fines of $500 until the violation is corrected." One of the workers looked uncomfortable. "Ma'am, the property owner is objecting. We might need additional authorization." "Keep working," Karen snapped. "I have full authority here." That's when I did what any smart rancher would do. I called the sheriff. "This is Jake Sullivan out on County Road 45. I need a deputy here immediately. Someone's illegally fencing off my property without permission." "Don't you dare call the police," Karen shouted. "This is a legitimate environmental enforcement action." But it was too late. Within 20 minutes, Deputy Martinez arrived, the same officer who dealt with Karen's previous schemes around the county. Karen immediately approached him with her folder of official documents, putting on her most professional demeanor. "Officer Martinez, thank goodness you're here. We're implementing emergency environmental controls to protect the community water supply from agricultural contamination." Martinez examined her papers with the practiced eye of someone who'd seen plenty of fake documents. His expression grew increasingly skeptical as he read. "Ma'am, these appear to be HOA environmental guidelines, not county enforcement orders. Where's the official county seal and signature?" Karen's confidence wavered slightly. The environmental department issued emergency authorization. It's all perfectly legal." "Ma'am, I'm going to need to verify this with the county environmental office." Martinez pulled out his radio and made a call. While he was checking, I showed him my security camera footage from the past few days, including the midnight visits Karen had made to survey my property with what appeared to be development company representatives. "Mr. Sullivan," Martinez said after ending his radio call, "the county environmental department has no record of any violations on your property. They've issued no emergency orders, and they have no complaints on file regarding your livestock operation." Karen's face went white. But the water contamination reports." "What reports, ma'am?" "The county says they've never received any reports about this property." That's when Karen made her first serious mistake. Instead of backing down gracefully, she doubled down on her lies. "Officer, you're obviously not familiar with the proper environmental enforcement procedures. I have authority under HOA emergency provisions to take immediate action when community health is threatened." "Ma'am, the HOA has no authority to install structures on private property without the owner's consent. That's criminal trespass and destruction of property. This is ridiculous. These animals are contaminating shared water resources. If you won't enforce environmental law, I'll find someone who will." Karen pulled out her phone and started making frantic calls, pacing back and forth while speaking rapidly to someone about incompetent local law enforcement and environmental crimes. I could hear her getting more agitated with each call. Apparently, whoever she was calling wasn't backing up her story. Martinez was taking detailed notes, and I could see his patience wearing thin with each of Karen's increasingly desperate explanations. "Ma'am, you need to have your crew stop work immediately and remove this fencing. You're trespassing on private property." "I will not. This is a matter of public safety. I have emergency authority." "Ma'am, Show me one piece of official county documentation that gives you authority to install fencing on Mr. Sullivan's property. Karen rifled through her papers frantically, but everything she had was either HOA guidelines or fake environmental reports she'd apparently created herself. The emergency provisions don't require. I mean, when there's imminent danger. Ma'am, there's no imminent danger. The county environmental department confirms this property has no violations. You're trespassing and need to leave immediately. That's when Karen's entire facade crumbled. The professional demeanor disappeared, replaced by pure panic. You don't understand. The development company is counting on me. I've already promised them access to this water source. My contract depends on clearing this land for development. Martinez and I exchanged glances. Karen had just confessed to conspiracy to defraud a property owner. Ma'am, are you saying you're working with a development company to acquire this property through false environmental claims? Karen realized she'd said too much. Her eyes went wild as she looked around frantically, at the half-installed fence, at Martinez reaching for his handcuffs, at me documenting everything with my phone, at the construction workers who were now backing away from what was clearly becoming a legal nightmare. I didn't mean. This is all a misunderstanding. Ma'am, you're under arrest for criminal trespass, filing false reports, and conspiracy to defraud. You have the right to remain silent. That's when Karen completely lost it. You can't arrest me. I'm protecting the community. I know my rights. This is harassment. And then she ran. Not walked. Not stormed off. She literally turned and sprinted toward the pond like she was being chased by wild animals. Ma'am, stop. Martinez called out, but Karen was in full flight mode. The problem was, Karen was wearing those expensive designer flats and a tight business skirt that wasn't designed for cross-country running across ranch terrain. Emma had come out to watch the excitement and was recording everything on her phone, probably planning to show her friends at school how the mean lady got in trouble. Daddy, why is she running toward our pond? Emma asked, filming as Karen stumbled across the uneven ground. Honey, I think she's about to learn an important lesson about trying to steal other people's property. Karen made it about 20 yards before her heel caught in a gopher hole. She stumbled, windmilled her arms frantically, and went down hard in the mud at the pond's edge. But her momentum carried her forward, and whether from panic or pure clumsiness, Karen rolled right into the water with a splash that sent my horses bolting in 3 directions. Help! Help me! She screamed, thrashing around in the shallow water like she was drowning in the ocean instead of 3 feet of spring-fed pond. The water was clear enough to see the bottom, but Karen was panicking so hard she couldn't seem to figure out how to stand up. Every time she tried to get her footing, she'd slip on the muddy bottom and splash back down. Martinez and I ran to the water's edge, trying not to laugh at the sight of the self-appointed environmental enforcer flailing around like a wet chicken. Ma'am, the water's only 3 feet deep, Martinez called out. Just stand up and walk to shore. I can't. My shoes are stuck. The mud's too deep. There's something wrong with this water. Sure enough, Karen's expensive designer flats had sunk into the soft pond bottom like quicksand. Every time she tried to pull her feet free, she'd lose her balance and splash back down, getting muddier and more frantic with each attempt. Emma was giggling behind her phone camera. Daddy, she looks like a muddy duck. Martinez waded in to help, but each step stirred up more sediment from the bottom. By the time he reached Karen, they were both covered in black muck that clung to everything it touched. Ma'am, stop thrashing around. You're making it worse. This pond is contaminated. Look at this mud. This proves the environmental violations. Ma'am, this is natural pond sediment. It's supposed to be here. It took 15 minutes to extract the HOA president from my pond. Her perfect blonde hair was now full of pond weeds and looked like a wet mop. Her white blazer was brown with mud, her skirt was torn, and she smelled like she'd been wrestling with catfish for an hour. But Karen wasn't done making things worse for herself. This is assault, she screamed at me, water streaming from every surface. You deliberately created a hazardous situation. I'm suing you for everything you own. This pond is a death trap. Ma'am, Martinez said, wringing pond water out of his uniform shirt, you're under arrest for criminal trespass, destruction of property, filing false reports, conspiracy to defraud, and resisting a lawful order. What? You can't arrest me. I'm the HOA president. I was protecting the community. Ma'am, turn around and put your hands behind your back. The sight of Karen Mitchell being handcuffed while covered head to toe in pond mud, with her expensive outfit ruined and her hair full of aquatic vegetation, was so satisfying I almost felt guilty about enjoying it. Almost. This isn't over, she shouted as Martinez loaded her into his patrol car, leaving muddy handprints on everything she touched. "I'll have your badge. I'll sue the county. I'll call the EPA. This pond is a public menace. Ma'am, you have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use it." As the patrol car disappeared down my road, Karen's voice could still be heard through the closed windows, ranting about environmental violations and wrongful arrest. Emma looked up at me with those innocent 8-year-old eyes. "Daddy, why did the angry lady swim in our pond with all her clothes on? And why was she so mad about getting muddy when she fell in the mud?" I couldn't help but laugh. "Honey, sometimes grown-ups make very poor decisions when they're scared of getting in trouble for lying." The fence crew finished removing their equipment and left without saying a word, probably eager to distance themselves from what had clearly become a criminal investigation. My horses gradually returned to the pond, sniffing cautiously at the spots where Karen had thrashed around before resuming their peaceful drinking. They seemed completely unbothered by the drama, as if power-hungry HOA presidents falling into their water source was just another Tuesday morning on the ranch. That evening I got a call from County Attorney Sarah Walsh. "Mr. Sullivan, I understand you had some excitement at your ranch today. Deputy Martinez filed a very interesting report." "Yes, ma'am." "Is there anything else I need to do?" "Actually, we'd like you to come in tomorrow to discuss pressing additional charges. It turns out Ms. Mitchell has been filing false environmental complaints across the county for the past 2 years. Your case might be the key to a much bigger investigation involving Galaxy development and fraudulent property acquisition schemes." The next day I learned the full scope of Karen's operation. She'd been working as a community liaison for Galaxy Development, using fake HOA authority to harass rural property owners into selling their land at below-market prices. The scheme worked by filing false environmental complaints, then offering to help property owners avoid legal trouble by connecting them with legitimate buyers, who turned out to be Galaxy Development. Karen had successfully driven 3 other families off their land using the same tactics she tried on me. The difference was, those families hadn't had security cameras or a neighbor like Tom Rodriguez who knew how to spot development company fraud. 3 days later, the local newspaper ran a front-page story with the headline, "HOA President Arrested After Pond Plunge Exposes Land Fraud Scheme." The photo showed Karen being helped out of the water, looking like a mud-covered scarecrow who'd lost a fight with a swamp. The article revealed the entire Galaxy Development conspiracy, complete with details about Karen's fake environmental reports and her panicked confession during the arrest. But the story that really went viral was Emma's phone video of Karen's dramatic pond dive. She'd posted it on TikTok with the caption, "HOA Karen vs. Ranch Pond Karen Loses," and it had already been viewed over 50,000 times. The comments were hilarious. "That's what happens when you mess with a rancher's water. Best environmental enforcement ever." Karen got a full water quality inspection. She wanted to test the pond contamination firsthand, faced with tears of joy. Plot twist, the pond was contaminated, by Karen. Emma was thrilled by her sudden social media fame and kept checking the view count every few minutes. "Daddy, people from all over the world are watching the angry lady fall in our pond. Someone from Australia said she deserved it." A week later, I received formal documents from the County Environmental Department certifying that our pond water was not only clean but actually exceeded purity standards for livestock watering. I also got a formal apology from the Meadowbrook Hills HOA board, along with an assurance that they would not interfere with legitimate agricultural operations. Apparently, the other board members had been horrified to discover that their president was using HOA letterhead to commit fraud. Karen herself was facing serious criminal charges. In addition to the trespassing and false reports, the district attorney had added charges for conspiracy to defraud, filing false documents with government agencies, and running a criminal enterprise. Her lawyer was trying to negotiate a plea deal, but the county attorney was pushing for jail time, especially after discovering that Karen's scheme had cost other families their generational properties. Galaxy Development was also under investigation for their role in the fraud scheme. Their stock price had crashed after the scandal broke, and several executives were facing federal charges for conspiracy to defraud property owners. I heard through Tom Rodriguez that Karen's community service would involve cleaning roadside ditches around the county, work that would definitely get her clothes dirty and give her plenty of time to think about the consequences of trying to steal someone else's land. A month later, my ranch was peaceful again. The horses drank from the pond every day, the water was as clean as ever, and there wasn't an HOA president in sight. Emma had become something of a local celebrity at school, known as the girl who filmed the HOA lady falling in the pond. She'd started a new TikTok series called Ranch Life with Emma that featured our horses, ranch work, and environmental education about the importance of clean water sources. Her follow-up video explaining how spring-fed ponds actually work and why they're environmentally beneficial had been viewed over 100,000 times and attracted comments from environmental scientists praising her clear explanation of natural water systems. "Daddy, I think the angry lady actually helped us teach people about water," Emma observed one evening as we watched the horses drinking peacefully at sunset. She was right. Karen's fraudulent environmental claims had backfired spectacularly, drawing attention to the genuine environmental benefits of our natural pond and traditional ranching practices. 6 months later, our ranch had become an unofficial educational site. School groups came to learn about sustainable agriculture and natural water systems. Environmental organizations used us as an example of how traditional ranching could coexist with conservation goals. Emma still told the story of the day the angry lady went swimming with her clothes on to anyone who would listen. And every time she got to the part where Karen fell in the pond while running from the police, she'd dissolve into giggles that were contagious enough to make everyone laugh along. The best part was watching her explain to visitors why our pond was actually good for the environment. "See, the spring water comes up from underground, and it's super clean because the earth filters it naturally. The horses don't hurt it at all, they're part of the ecosystem." The angry lady didn't understand that water and animals can be friends. Sometimes the best way to deal with a bully is to just let them defeat themselves. Karen had done such a thorough job of destroying her own credibility that I barely had to lift a finger. Although watching her take an unscheduled swim while being chased by law enforcement was definitely one of the highlights of my ranching career. My horses got their water back, Karen got a criminal record and a very muddy reality check, and I got a story I'll be telling for the rest of my life. The moral? Don't try to fence off something that doesn't belong to you, especially when you're wearing inappropriate shoes and have no idea how to swim in muddy water. And if you're going to run from the police after confessing to fraud, maybe don't do it toward a pond full of slippery mud while wearing designer flats. Karen Mitchell learned both lessons the hard way. And my pond has never looked cleaner.